Aigues-Mortes is a French commune in the Gard department in the Languedoc-Roussillon region of southern France. The medieval city walls surrounding the city are well preserved. The inhabitants of the commune are known as Aigues-Mortais or Aigues-Mortaises. Geography: Aigues-Mortes is located in the Petite Camargue, some 90 km northwest of Marseille. By road, Aigues-Mortes is about 33 km southwest of Nîmes, and 20 km east of Montpellier in a direct line. Access to the commune is by route D979 coming south from Saint-Laurent-d'Aigouze to Aigues-Mortes town. Route D979 continues southwest through the commune to Le Grau-du-Roi. Route D62 also starts from Aigues-Mortes heading southwest parallel to D979 before turning eastwards and forming part of the southern border of the commune. Route D62A continues to Plan-de-Vidurie. The commune is composed of a portion of the wet plains and lakes of the Petite Camargue. It is separated from the Gulf of Lions by the town of Le Grau-du-Roi. However, Aigues-Mortes is connected to the sea through the Canal du Rhône. There is only one other hamlet in the commune called Marc-de Listel on the western border. The Canal du Rhône enters the commune from the northwest and the northeast in two branches from the main canal to the north, and the branches intersect in the town of Aigues-Mortes before exiting as a single canal alongside Route D979 and feeding into the Mediterranean Sea at Le Grau-du-Roi. A rail branch line from Nîmes passes through Aigues-Mortes from northeast to southwest, with a station in the town of Aigues-Mortes, to its terminus on the coast at Le Grau-du-Roi. This line also transports sea salt. The communes of Saint-Laurent-d'Aigouze and Le Grau-du-Roi are adjacent to the town of Aigues-Mortes. Its inhabitants are called Aigues-Mortais or Aigues-Mortes. In Occitan they are Aigues-Mortais. Aigues-Mortes is one of 79 member communes of the Chemin de Cohérence territorial of South Gard and is also one of 34 communes in the Pays de la Camargue. Aigues-Mortes is one of the 4 communes of the LOI littoral of Scott in the south of Gard. Neighboring communes and villages' toponymy attested in the Latinized form Aigues-Mortais in 1248. The name comes from the Occitan Aigues-Mortes, meaning dead water or stagnant water, equivalent to toponymic types in the Mortual dialect cf. Mortu, Mortua Aqua and Mortue, Mortua Aqua. The name comes from the Aigues-Mortes marshes and ponds that stretch around the village, and also the fact that there has never been potable water at Aigues-Mortes. Grau comes from the Occitan grau, meaning pond with extension. Grau-du-Roi in French means pond of the king. History. Antiquity. The foundation of the city is said to have been by Gaius Marius around 102 BC, but there is no documentary evidence to support this. A Roman by the name of Pecius fitted out the first salt marsh and gave his name to the marsh of Pecius. Salt mining started from the Neolithic period and was continued in the Hellenistic period, but the ancient uses of saline have not resulted in any major archaeological discovery. It is likely that any remains were destroyed by modern saline facilities. Middle Ages. In 791, Charlemagne erected the Matafia Tower amid the swamps for the safety of fishermen and salt workers. Some argue that the signaling and transmission of news was not foreign to the building of this tower, which was designed to give warning in case of arrival of a fleet. As for the Magna Tower at Nîmes, the purpose of this tower was part of the war plan and spiritual plan which Charlemagne granted at the Benedictine Abbey, dedicated to Opus Dei and whose incessant chanting, day and night, was to designate the convent Aigues-Mortes. This monastery still existed in 812, as confirmed by an act of endowment made by the Badilla from Nîmes at the abbey. At the time, the people lived in reed huts and made their living from fishing fishing, hunting, and salt production from several small salt marshes along the seashore. The region was then under the rule of the monks from the Abbey of Saint-Maudit. In 1240, Louis IX, who wanted to get rid of the influence of the Italian navy for transporting troops to the Crusades, focused on the strategic position of his kingdom. At the time, Marseille belonged to his brother Charles of Anjou, King of Naples, Agde, Count of Toulouse and Montpellier, and King of Aragon. Louis IX wanted direct access to the Mediterranean Sea. He obtained the town and the surrounding lands by exchange of properties with the monks of the abbey. Residents were exempt from the salt tax which was previously levied, so that they could now take the salt unconstrained. He built a road between the marshes and built the Carbonniere Tower to serve as a watchtower and protect access to the city. St. Louis then built the Constance Tower on the site of the old Matefier Tower to house the garrison. In 1272, his son and successor, Philip III the Bold, ordered the continuation of the construction of walls to completely encircle the small town. The work would not be completed for another 30 years. This was the city from which Louis IX twice departed for the Crusades, the Seventh Crusade in 1248 and again for the Eighth Crusade in 1270 for Tunis, where he died of dysentery. The year 1270 has been established, mistakenly for many historians, as the last step of a process initiated at the end of the 11th century. The judgment is hasty because the transfer of Crusaders or mercenaries from the harbour of Aigues-Mortes continued after this year. The order given in 1275 to Guillaume de Roussillon by Philip III the Bold and Pope Gregory X after the Council of Lyons in 1274 to reinforce St. Jean d'Acre in the east shows that maritime activity continued for a Ninth Crusade which never took place. There is a popular belief that the sea reached Aigues-Mortes in 1270. In fact, as confirmed by studies of the engineer Charles-Léon d'Ombre, the whole port of Aigues-Mortes, including the port itself, was in the Muret Pond, the canal field and Grau-Louis, the canal field being the access channel to the sea. The Grau-Louis was approximately at the modern location of Le Grand Aigues-Mortes. At the beginning of the 14th century, Philip the Fair used the fortified site to incarcerate the Templars. Between 8 and the 11th of November 1307, 45 of them were put to the question, found guilty, and held prisoner in the Tower of Constance. Modern and contemporary periods Aigues-Mortes still retained its privileges granted by the kings. Curiously, it was a great Protestant in the person of Jean de Rambert who said that the one-eyed light horse commander of King Henry IV and former governor of Vendôme should be appointed governor of Aigues-Mortes and the Carbonniere Tower on the 4th of September 1607. To do this, he took an oath before the Constable of France Henry de Montmorency, governor of Languedoc. But one Catholic, the Lord of Berchier, supported the rival Adrien de Chantement. The conflict continued until 1612, and Harambert, supported by the pastors of Lower Languedoc and the inhabitants, finished it by a personal appeal to the Queen. He eventually resigned on the 27th of February 1615 in favour of his son Jean de Rambert, but King Louis XIII restored him for 6 years. On the 27th of July 1616 he resigned again in favour of Gaspard III de Coligny, but not without obtaining a token of appreciation for the judges and consuls of the city. At the beginning of the 15th century, important works were being undertaken to facilitate access to Aigues-Mortes from the sea. The old Grau-Louis, dug for the Crusades, was replaced by the Grau de la Croisette, and a port was dug at the base of the Tower of Constance. It lost its importance from 1481 when Provence and Marseille were attached to the Kingdom of France. Only the exploitation of the Peca is salt marshes encouraged François in 1532 to connect the salt industry of Aigues-Mortes to the sea. This channel, said Grau Henry, silted up in turn. The opening, in 1752, of the Grau du Roi solved the problem for a while. A final solution was found in 1806 by connecting the Aigues-Mortes river port through the Canal du Rhône. From 1575 to 1622, Aigues-Mortes was one of the 8 safe havens granted to the Protestants. The revocation of the Edict of Nantes in 1685 caused severe repression of Protestantism, which was marked in Languedoc and the Cevennes in the early 18th century by the Camisard War. Like other towers in the town, from 1686 onwards, the Constance Tower was used as a prison for the Huguenots who refused to convert to Roman Catholicism. In 1703, Abraham Mazel, leader of the Camicids, managed to escape with 16 companions. During the French Revolution, the city was called Port Pelletier. At the time, the port had almost disappeared due to silting, induced by the intensification of labor in the watershed at the same time as the clearing of woods and forests following the abolition of privileges. The decline of forest cover led to soil erosion and consequently a greater quantity of alluvial deposits in the ports of the region. Thus, in 1804 the prefect Mr. de Baron-Père wrote in a report that the coasts of this department are more prone to silting. The ports of Maguelone and Aigues-Mortes and the old port of Sète no longer exist except in history. He alerted an inordinate desire to collect and multiply these forest clearings since 1790. Greed has devoured in a few years the resource of the future. The mountains, open to the plough, show that soon naked and barren rock, each groove becoming a ravine. The topsoil, driven by storms, has been brought into the rivers, and thence into the lower parts, where it serves every day to find the lowest parts in the darkest swamps. The massacre of Italians in the summer of 1893. The Compagnie des Salons du Midi launched a recruiting campaign for workers for the threshing and the lifting of salt. Hiring was reduced due to the economic crisis that hit Europe, so the prospect of finding a seasonal job was attractive in this year and there were a greater number of workers looking for work. These were divided into 3 categories nicknamed Ardèche peasants, not necessarily native to Ardèche, who leave the land at this time of the season; Piedmontese, consisting of Italians from throughout northern Italy and locally recruited by team leaders; the chefs du cœur, tramps, composed mainly of vagabonds. Because of the recruitment operated by Compagnie des Salons du Midi, the chefs de coeur were forced to compose teams including both French and Italians. In the early morning of the 16th of August 1893 a fight broke out between the 2 communities that quickly turned into a struggle of honor. Despite the intervention of the justice of the peace and the police, the situation rapidly degenerated. Some tramps met in Aigues-Mortes and, saying that Italians had killed some Aigues-Mortais, swelled the ranks of the population and of people who had not managed to find employment. A group of Italians was then attacked and tried to take refuge in a bakery that rioters wanted to burn. The prefect called for troops at 4 a.m., but they did not arrive on the scene until 18 hours after the drama. Early in the morning, the situation escalated and the rioters moved to the Peccaïs salt fields where there were the largest number of Italians. Police Captain Cabli, trying to provide protection, promised the rioters to hunt the Italians and escort them to the Aigues-Mortais police station. It was during the journey that the Italians Italians attacked by the rioters were massacred by a crowd that the police were unable to contain. There were 7 dead and 50 wounded, some of whom had lifelong consequences. This was the largest massacre of immigrants in the modern history of France, and also one of the biggest scandals in its judicial history because no condemnation was ever pronounced. The case became a diplomatic issue, and the Transalpine foreign press took up the cause of the Italians. There were anti-French riots in Italy. A diplomatic solution was found and the parties were compensated, while the nationalist mayor Marius Terrace was forced to resign. A theatrical play by Serge Valetti called Dirty August is based on the tragic events. Heraldry, economy, agriculture, viticulture and asparagus, breeding of bulls and of Camargue horses. Both are raised almost wild in the surrounding marshes. The Camargue bull is smaller than the Spanish fighting bulls, stocky, with high horns and head. It measures about 1.40 meters at the withers. It is primarily intended for bullfighting, which is very popular in the region. The Camargue horse is the ultimate companion for herdsmen to move into the marshes and hunt bulls. According to some discoveries of bones, it seems that the ancestors of the Camargue horse date to the Quaternary period. The Camargue horse is not very large, about 1.50 meters tall. It has a huge resistance adapted to the terrain. Its color is brown at birth, gradually turning white after a few years. Industry's production of salt by the operation of the salt works of the Salons group, probably used since ancient times. The salt of Aigues-Mortes attracted fishermen and salt workers. The Benedictine monks settled nearby in the 8th century at the Abbey of Saint-Maudit to exploit this valuable commodity in the Percaïs ponds. The salt has long been one of the main resources of the city. To achieve table salt quality, water pumped from the sea travels more than 70 kilometers in Rubines. The concentration of sodium chloride is from 29 to more than 260 gms kilo. Mechanically harvested salt is piled up in the twinkling camels before being packaged. It is suitable for human consumption. Tourism. The medieval heritage from the 13th and 14th centuries of the commune and its proximity to the sea attract many tourists and residents of France. Transport. River. The city of Aigues-Mortes is a crossroads of canals. Canal du Rhône set from the northeast and leaving westward. Canal de Bourgogne to the southeast, and joins the Petit Rhône via other channels to the limit of Gard and Bouches du Rhône. Le Graudois, maintained since the Middle Ages and connecting Aigues-Mortes to the central part of Graudois Railway. The line Nîmes to Le Graudois serves the towns and villages of Costières and the coastline, with a terminus at Le Graudois. It is also used for the transport of salt produced by the saltworks of the Salons group. Road. The development of seaside tourism since the 1960s was marked by the construction of new resorts and the extension of existing facilities from Le Graudois to Port Camargue. To facilitate access to tourists, a coastal road network has been augmented and connected to the A9 motorway. Aigues-Mortes benefits in these ways. To the east, the road D58 connects the city to Saintes-Maries-de-la-Mer and the commune of Arles. This road winds through the rice fields and the various ponds that make up the Camargue. To the west, the road D62 was enlarged for cars to make a quick connection to Montpellier. To the north, the road D979 directly connects the town to the motorway at Galax-le-Montchelou. The bus 106 also connects Montpellier and Saintes-Maries-de-la-Mer. Administration. Municipal administration. The municipal council consists of 29 members including the mayor, 8 deputies, and 20 municipal councillors. Since the last municipal elections, its composition is as follows. List of successive mayors of Aigues-Mortes. Mayors from 1944. Canton. The town is the capital of the canton of the same name, whose general council is Léopold Rousseau, deputy mayor of Le Grau-du-Var and president of the community of communes Terre de Camargue. The canton is part of the arrondissement of Nîmes and the second electoral district of Gard, where the member is Gilbert Collard. Demography. In 2010 the commune had 8,341 inhabitants. The evolution of the number of inhabitants is known from the population censuses conducted in the commune since 1793. For the 21st century, a census of communes with fewer than 10,000 inhabitants is held every 5 years. Unlike larger towns that have a sample survey every year, population change sources LDHEHESS Cassini until 1962, INSEE database from 1968, distribution of age groups. The distribution of the population of the municipality by age group is as follows: 47.6% of men, 52.4% of women. The female population is overrepresented compared to men. The rate of is substantially the same as the national rate. Percentage distribution of age groups in Aigues-Mortes and Gard department in 2007. Local culture. The Aigues-Mortes Fourriasse was one of the first pastries which could rise. It can be sweet or salty. Traditionally, making sweet fourriasse in Aigues-Mortes was reserved for the Christmas period as part of the 13 desserts. Based on a brioche dough, sugar, butter, and orange blossom, it was made by the baker with ingredients provided by the client. Now Aigues-Mortes Fourriasse sells all year. Loudrape. Loudrape is an imaginary horse mentioned in local folklore, which was supposed to walk at night around the ramparts of the city and take 50 to 100 children on his back, and disappear to nowhere. Historical sites. Aigues-Mortes has a very large number of sites registered as historical monuments. A complete list of all the buildings that are registered as historical monuments can be seen on Mairie here, while a complete list of all items registered as historical objects can be seen on Palissy here. The Tower of Constance and the ramparts. The Tower of Constance was built in 1242 by St. Louis on the former site of the Matterfair Tower, which was built by Charlemagne around 790 AD to house the king's garrison. The construction was completed in 1254. It is 22 meters in diameter with a height of either 33 or 40 meters depending on the source. The thickness of the walls at the base is 6 meters. On the ground floor, there is a guardroom protected by a portcullis. In the middle of the room, there is a circular opening leading to the cellar which served as a pantry, storage of ammunition as well as for dungeons. These areas were called the Culs de Basse-Fosse, an old way of saying underground dungeons in French. On the first floor, there is the Knight's Hall. Structurally it is similar to the guardroom. It was in this room that the Protestants were imprisoned during the 18th century, most notably Marie Durand, who engraved the word "Raciste" into the edge of the well, which can be seen to this day. She was imprisoned at the age of 15 and was freed 38 years later, along with political prisoners such as Abraham Masel, leader of the Camasids. Between these two rooms, a narrow, covered way was built within the walls to keep watch on the room below. After the Knight's Hall, there is an entrance to the terrace which offers a wide panoramic view of the region, making it an ideal position for surveillance. Sometimes, the prisoners were allowed to go on the terrace to get some fresh air. The ramparts stretch for a distance of 1,650 meters. Spectacular in the height and the state of preservation, even though they were not restored in the 19th century, as was Carcassonne for example, they remain in a well-preserved state. Along with the Tower of Constance, they are a testimony to Western European military architecture in the marshlands during the 13th and 14th centuries. The Carbonnière Tower located in the commune of Saint-Laurent-d'Aigouze. The Carbonnière Tower was first referred to in an old text from 1346 specifying the function of the structure. It said, "This fortress is the key to the kingdom in this region." Surrounded by salt marshes, the fortress was the only passageway into Aigues-Mortes. It was guarded by a garrison made up of a chatelaine and several guards. For the terrace, which could support up to 4 cannons, there is a panoramic view of Petite Camargue. The Church of Notre-Dame des Sablons. The Church of Notre-Dame des Sablons is a Gothic-style church and was probably built before the ramparts in the mid-13th century during the time of St. Louis. In 1537 it served as a collegiate church but was later vandalized by Protestants in 1575. After the reconstruction of the bell tower in 1634 it later served as a temple of reason during the French Revolution, a barracks, grain merchant, and a salt warehouse. It was re-established as a place of worship in 1804 and the building was restored in the neoclassical Baroque style. Between 1964 and 1967 all of the 19th century decor was removed, notably the coffered ceilings, resulting in the much more basic and medieval style church we see today. Since 1991, the stained glass windows by Claude Villard, a contemporary artist belonging to the supports surfaces art movement, add extraordinary light and color to the building. With the exception of a few statues, the rest of the 18th and 19th century furniture disappeared during this period. The facade is crowned by a simple bell gable housing 3 bells. The largest of the 3 is 1.07 meters in diameter. It was dated to 1740, cast by master smelter Jean Poutignon, and has been designated a historical monument of France. The church also houses a statue of St. Louis. The Chapel of the Grey Penitents. The Chapel of the Grey Penitents is located to the east of the Place de la Vigrie. It is the property of the Brotherhood of Grey Penitents established in 1400. The facade is in the style of Louis XIV. The entrance door is from the 17th century and is decorated with a wooden statue. The altarpiece was carved in 1687 by Sabatier. Inside, an altarpiece represents the Passion of Christ. It was built of grey stucco plaster in 1687 by the sculptor Sabatier from Montpellier. This altar, on which are the arms of the Brotherhood, occupies the back of the choir. The Chapel of the White Penitents. The Chapel of the White Penitents is located at the corner of the Rue de la République and Rue Louis Blanc. It belongs to the Brotherhood of the White Penitents, which was created in 1622. Above the choir, on the roof, there is a copy of the Retable of Jerusalem where Christ celebrated the Passover and Holy Thursday with his apostles. Around the high altar, a painting on canvas traces the descent of the Holy Spirit on the day of Pentecost. It is attributed to Xavier Sigolon, a painter born in Uzes in 1778. On each side of the choir stand 2 statues. On the left, St. Felix for the redemption of captives. On the right, James, son of Alphaeus, first Bishop of Jerusalem. St. Louis Square. This is the touristic heart of the city. In the center, opposite the main entrance of the Porte de la Gardette, stands the statue of St. Louis, the work of James Pradier in 1849. Plan des Theatres. The Plan des Theatres are arenas for the Camargue bullfights. They were listed in 1993 on the inventory of the list of historic monuments for their ethnological and cultural interest. They can accommodate more than 600 people. Aerial views. Literary references. Ernest Hemingway's third major posthumous work, the novel The Garden of Eden, takes place in Aigues-Mortes. Wayne Koestenbaum set his 2004 novel Moira Orphée in Aigues-Mortes. In Aigues-Mortes, Michael Moorcock's Hawk Moon novels feature Aigues-Mortes as the site of Castle Brass and capital city of a futuristic Camargue. Giovanni Boccaccio's The Decameron, Second Day, Seventh Story, as the place the king's daughter was shipwrecked in her false explanation of her 4-year absence. Notable people linked to the commune. Emmanuel Theouan, playwright born in Aigues-Mortes on 14 August 1787. Michel Emy, a former footballer, born in Aigues-Mortes on 15 August 1948. Frédéric Bazzi, one of the founders of Impressionism, represented Aigues-Mortes in one of his paintings. Maurice Fontaine, a former senator and mayor. Gallery.